What's going on, guys? Hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. So today we really need to talk about Chinese stocks, right? Because if we take a look at Alibaba, it's down 10%. JD.com down another 10%. Pinduoduo down 20%. And if we take a look at the Hang Seng Index, right, this is basically the index for the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, which Baba and JD and Pinduoduo are also in, right? They are down 5% in a day. Can you imagine that? That's like the Nasdaq being down 5% in a day. So today we need to talk about whether this represents a buying opportunity, or is this like we're gonna lose all our money, we're buying worthless pieces of papers, right? So let's just start with what caused this initial tumble, right? And for that we have to look a bit at a history lesson, right? And if you take a look at Alibaba from its peak, right, it's actually down 75%, right? Can you imagine this company that was nearly worth $800 billion now is sitting at $200 billion, right? So you know that in October of 2020, Alibaba basically said Chinese government and banking system bad. Not Alibaba specifically, but Jack Ma. And what happened after that was a colossal clampdown on these companies, right? So what caused today's situation? It's actually more of the same. Chinese ride-hailing giant Didi has put a pause on its Hong Kong listings after it fails to appease Chinese regulators' demand to change the way it handles sensitive user data. Right? So this has been the same issue since Didi listed its stock. Right? And if I can pull up a Didi stock chart, right, you can see that there's an absolute horror show going on here. Right? So in one day they lost like 40-50% of their stock value, right? So that's absolutely crazy, right? And on the 1 year it's lost about 90%, right? So yeah, pretty insane. I never thought I'd live to see this day, but this is perhaps why you should stay away from when something is very clearly in the wrong, right? You should stay away from it, or not in the regulator's good view, right? In the US, it may be a different story because regulators have limited power. But in China specifically, yeah, this will happen if you go against the regulator, right? Because the regulators have already said that Didi should not list on the US stock exchange, right? So you can see that Didi basically got absolutely devastated and the shareholders basically got rug pulled, right? So a lot of people will be complaining, oh my god, how can the Chinese government do this, or how can Didi do this, right? But at the end of the day, on this planet, you have to realize that you are the only one looking out for yourself, right? If you see something like this and you decide to participate anyways, so you can only blame yourself, right? And learn from this mistake, probably. So after these plans got halted, basically, a lot of Chinese stocks got hammered. If you take a look at the past 5 days on Alibaba, it's down 20%, right? So basically what happened was everyone was really scared that the same thing will happen to Alibaba or whatever it is. And a second thing is also the SEC, right? So the SEC announced on Thursday, basically last Thursday, about 5 days ago, that fast food chain Yum China, technology firm ACM Research, as well as biotechnology companies Beijing, Puchmed, and Zylab are now facing prospect of delisting under the Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act, which became law in December. So this is basically the Trump law that says, oh, if Chinese companies don't disclose properly, then we are going to delist all of them or something, right? Because basically, I understand why they did it, because at that time there were scams, there was Luckin Coffee, there was this issue, that issue, right? So what can we make from this, right? So a lot of people would take this information and say, oh my god, every Chinese stock is going to get delisted and everything is going to go to zero, right? So first of all, if it's already listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, I don't think that's any issue, because all you can do is just transfer shares over to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, right? So personally, if I'm buying Alibaba, which I plan to buy in the near future, I will be buying on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, right? So to not incur all this other unnecessary fees if it actually gets delisted, right? So you might say, oh, if it's going to get delisted, why don't you wait? But I don't know for a certain fact that it will get delisted, right? And also, even if I know for a fact, by the time it gets delisted, a lot of it might have been priced in. So when it moved to Hong Kong, and then the price will just spike, right? So a lot of things can happen like this. You cannot just take the simple view to say that, oh, you get delisted means price will go down. Because as you can see, right, the price is already down 20% in the past just 5 trading days, right? That means a lot of people and a lot of investors are already selling out in anticipation of this happening. So what about this Didi halting its IPO, right? So basically, some people will use this and say, okay, all governments, they will, the Chinese government will block all IPOs, right? This is not true, because if you take a look at Chinese EV automaker NIO, right, basically they just debuted on the same Thursday that the SEC basically came out and say, oh, these Chinese stocks will get delisted, right? So we can see that clearly that is not the Chinese government's intention, right? So I don't know, maybe the Chinese government has some issues with Didi or what's going on with Didi, but I would steer very clear from Didi's stock, right? So obviously not financial advice, right? But me personally, I wouldn't touch Didi stock with a 10-foot pole, right? Basically, because you can see that Didi is clearly not in the government's good graces, right? I don't know what they did or what the founder said to offend the Chinese government in such ways, but apparently there's this ongoing problem, right? So you can see that NIO actually got listed. So if you take a look at both of them, NIO is actually basically in line with the Chinese government's objectives, right? Which is basically build a competitive EV industry, not just have Tesla come over, produce all their cars in your factories and sell to your customers. Meanwhile, your own auto industry or EV industry is basically dying, right? But when it comes to Didi, basically it's either they are complaining about the ride hailing is providing too little income to the drivers, or they are collecting too much of user data. So it's not aligned with the Chinese government, right? So now I want to talk about whether this is an opportunity, right? So in my opinion, all these loss-making companies such as JD, right? I believe JD is still a loss-making company, right? I would really steer clear from it because I don't know really how to value it. But at this point, I think almost all these high-tech Chinese stocks are selling at a very deep discount, right? After basically 60-70% haircut, right? So if we just take a look at JD, it's down about 60%, right? And as weird as it is to say, right, actually JD is performing very well, right? Down 60% and performing really well, right? So when you look at Pinduoduo, it's down 87%, and you look at Baba, it's actually down 75%, right? So do you know what else needs to be smashed other than Pinduoduo's stock price? Of course, it's the like button. So be sure to smash up the like button, hit subscribe, and also hit the bell button. So in my opinion, I would stick to Baba because it's very prime in my circle of competence. There's cloud and all that. So I think I'm getting a lot of value on my money, and I'll continue buying in the near future, right? So what's my reasoning? My reasoning is because I don't think it's worthless pieces of paper, right? So even if it moves on to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, it makes no difference to me because I'm not a fund, I'm not a pension or whatever it is that has certain rules that I have to follow, right? Basically, if you're a US pension fund, it says you can only own US stocks. Then yeah, if it moves on to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, no matter what's the price, you have to sell it, right? No matter what. So looking forward, what do I think will happen to all these Chinese companies? So personally, I don't think all of it will get delisted. Like maybe some quality names like Alibaba, Tencent will just post their financials for the US regulators. Or even if they don't do that, they will trade on the OTC market. And also they'll be traded on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, where I recommend you buy your stocks at, right? Because you don't want to go through, let's say if this Chinese ADR gets delisted, you need to pay some fees to transfer it to Hong Kong shares, right? So Hong Kong dollar is also pegged to the US dollar. So what's the point of basically taking that unnecessary chance to have this fees that you need to pay, right? Because Hong Kong dollar and US dollar is basically pegged. So it's actually the same thing, right? So do I think that this pain will continue? I have no idea, honestly speaking. A lot of people will tell you, oh, this is the bottom or what. But they also say that at $100 a few days ago, right? They say, oh, this is the bottom. Alibaba would never go below $100, and now it's at 77. Right? So today is 15th of March in 2022, right? And the issue is the Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act only goes into play basically in 2024, right? That's the time that they will delist it, right? So from now until then, what will happen, I also don't know, because a lot of issues regarding all this will be basically in limbo, right? Because there's no clear-cut decisions yet. And investors, they love certainty, right? So if there's a clear-cut decision that Alibaba is getting delisted, right, I'm sure you'll see a spike down. Maybe, I don't know, if today is $70, it can easily spike down to, $40 or $50. But when it gets relisted on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and all this fear is gone, right? Basically, I think the price will continue to appreciate. So taking a look at what I think will happen with Alibaba's fundamentals, right? So if you can take a look at 2016, basically let's just take a time where the stock price is the same, right? So 2016 in April, right? And it was at $77 per share, basically the same as it is now, right? And we take a look at 2016, and since then the revenue has 8x, right? So trailing 12 months revenue is actually 836 billion Chinese yuan. Meanwhile, in 2016, it was 101 billion, right? So now if you take a look at that and you think that how can the stock be priced at the same way, right? So in my opinion, if the whole VIE structure doesn't get invalidated, right, this is a great opportunity, right? Versus people that think this is I'm gonna throw in the towel, this is a worthless piece of paper. So I urge you to take a look at all this, right? Unless you believe that China is really going to return to communist roots, then yeah, maybe it's possible. But in my opinion, a bit of my portfolio to take that kind of risk obviously is not too big of a deal, right? I wouldn't advise anyone going all in, right? Because if you go all in and you have a 1% chance of losing all your money, right? So that's not a risk I think anyone should be taking, right? So if we take a look at fundamentals, clearly they have been growing. But if we take a look at stock price, clearly it's not been growing, right? So one thing has to catch up to the other, right? Either this VIE structure gets banned, or Alibaba comes out as a fraud, or the Chinese government nationalizes Alibaba. In either of those scenarios, your investment will go to zero. But if the Chinese government just comes out and say, oh, we're more business friendly and we're going to stop the crackdowns because we've already wiped clean the basically plague that was plaguing our companies, right? You can see this stocks easily, right, triple in the next 1 year or something like that, right? So yeah, that's about all I wanted to share today. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to smash up the thumbs up button, hit subscribe, and also hit the bell button. With that being said, have a fantastic day ahead and peace out.